This story is titled, "When I Got Home from My Double Shift, My Son Greeted Me with, Mom says you're only useful until the mortgage is paid." I laughed it off until I overheard her and her lover planning my exit. Last night, I switched the house title. Today, she's locked out. I-42M. Never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, sitting in my home office at 3 a.m., trying to make sense of how my life turned upside down in just 72 hours. I've been married to Sarah, 39F, for 15 years, and we have a son, Tommy, 8M. I work as an ER nurse, often pulling double shifts to keep up with the mortgage on our dream house and maintain the lifestyle Sarah always wanted. Last Wednesday started like any other exhausting day. I just finished a brutal 16-hour shift, dealing with 3 major traumas and a packed ER. Walking through our front door at 11 p.m., all I wanted was a shower and my bed. Instead, I found Tommy still awake, playing his Nintendo Switch in the living room. When I asked why he wasn't in bed, he looked up at me with those innocent eyes and said, "Mom says you're only useful until the mortgage is paid." Kids say weird things sometimes, right? I laughed it off, ruffled his hair, and sent into bed. But something about those words kept nagging at me. Maybe it was the way he said it, so matter-of-factly, like repeating something he'd heard multiple times. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, but Sarah wasn't there. Then I heard voices coming from our home office. I was about to knock when I caught my name. I know eavesdropping isn't right, but what I heard next froze me in place. Once the house is paid off next month, we can finally move forward with our plan. It was Sarah's voice, followed by a male voice I didn't recognize. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" the man asked. Sarah's laugh, cold and unfamiliar, sent chills down my spine. Mike's too busy working himself to death to notice anything. Besides, he trusts me completely. In that moment, standing in my own hallway, I became a stranger in my life. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Sarah's cold laugh and that man's voice. I lay in our guest bedroom, pretending to be exhausted from my shift when Sarah finally came to bed. My mind was racing, planning my next moves. 15 years of marriage, and it all came down to this: my wife and her lover waiting for the right moment to throw me out of my own house. The house I'd nearly killed myself working for. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. As soon as Sarah dropped Tommy off at school and left for her yoga class, funny how she never seemed to get any more flexible, I went into action. First stop, our family lawyer's office. I'd helped save his daughter's life during a car accident last year, and he got me in immediately. The look on his face when I played the recording from last night. Yes, I recorded it on my phone after the first few sentences said it all. "The house is in both your names?" he asked, already pulling up documents. "For now," I replied. Thanks to Sarah's overconfidence, she'd never bothered learning about property laws. Within hours, I had the paperwork ready. The house was mine. I paid every cent of the mortgage anyway. My lawyer fast-tracked everything through his connections. Next stop, the hardware store. For new sets of locks, a security camera system, and a doorbell camera. The locksmith owed me a favor after I helped his mom in the ER last Christmas. He came right over and changed everything while I installed the cameras. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Sarah to somehow know what I was doing. But her Instagram showed her having lunch with her gym buddies, including a man I now recognized by his voice from last night's conversation. The anger inside me was like nothing I'd ever felt before, but I stayed focused. Everything had to be perfect. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Around 4 p.m., I heard Sarah's car pull into the driveway. Through the security camera, I watched her perfectly manicured nails fumbling with her house key. Once, twice, 3 times, the key wouldn't turn. Her confusion turned to frustration, then to rage. She started pounding on the door. Mike, open this door right now. What the hell is going on?" I stood silently in the hallway, watching her meltdown on the doorbell camera. She tried calling my phone, but I'd already blocked her number. Her face got redder with each failed attempt. "I swear to God, Mike, if you don't open this door right now." That's when she stormed off to the side of the house. I switched camera views just in time to see her forcing open the kitchen window, the one she always insisted we leave unlocked in case of emergencies. Within seconds, she was climbing through, designer yoga pants and all, knocking over the potted plants on the counter. The moment her feet hit the kitchen floor, she started screaming. "How dare you change the locks on me? Have you lost your mind?" She stormed through the house, high heels clicking against the hardwood floors, throwing anything she could get her hands on. A vase shattered against the wall. Our wedding photo went flying across the room. I stepped out of the hallway, facing her. She froze mid-throw, a decorative bowl still in her hand. "What's wrong, Sarah? You seem upset. Having trouble getting into the house you were planning to kick me out of?" The bowl slipped from her fingers, crashing to the floor. Her face went from red to white in an instant. What are you talking about? You know, it's funny how kids repeat the darndest things. Like when their mom tells them their dad is only useful until the mortgage is paid. She tried to compose herself, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Mike, honey, you're clearly confused. Let me explain." "Explain what? Your lunch date with your lover today, or your plans to take my house once it's paid off next month?" Sarah's composure shattered like the vase on our floor. "You were spying on me," she shrieked, her voice hitting octaves I'd never heard before. "You recorded my private conversations? That's illegal." I couldn't help but laugh. "Illegal? Like plotting to throw your husband out of his own house? The house he worked double shifts to pay for while you were out with." "What's his name?" "The guy with the deep voice who was in our home office last night." She went through every emotion in seconds: shock, anger, fear, and then suddenly, tears. The same tears she used to manipulate me countless times before. "Baby, please, you're misunderstanding everything. Jason is just a friend from—" "Jason?" "Funny, on Instagram he's tagged as James." I watched her face fall as she realized she'd trapped herself in another lie. That's when she snapped. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking with rage. Fine. I'm calling the police. You can't just steal my house." 20 minutes later, 2 officers showed up. Sarah put on quite a show, crying about how her unstable husband had locked her out of her own home. The younger officer looked sympathetic until his partner asked to see the property documents. I handed them over silently, the fresh paperwork from my lawyer, the mortgage statement showing every payment from my account, and the newly registered deed with only my name on it. "Ma'am," the older officer said, reviewing the documents, "this appears to be legally his property. There's nothing criminal here. This is a civil matter." Sarah's mascara-streaked face contorted with rage. "What? No. Check again. I live here. Living here and owning the property are 2 different things, ma'am," the officer explained patiently. "The deed is clearly in his name. If you have any disputes, you'll need to take them up in civil court." As the officers left, Sarah stood in my living room, her perfect yoga outfit wrinkled, her carefully maintained image completely unraveled. "You think you're so smart?" she asked. "You have no idea what's coming." After the police left, Sarah stood in the driveway for nearly an hour, making calls. I could see her pacing back and forth on the security cameras, gesturing wildly. Something about her body language made me uneasy. This wasn't over. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "School called. Tommy's not feeling well." I picked him up early. "Sign the house back over and I'll drop him at your sister's. You have 2 hours. My blood ran cold. I immediately called Tommy's school. He had never arrived that morning. Sarah had intercepted him at the bus stop. My hands were shaking as I called my sister Lisa, but she hadn't heard from either of them. Another text came through. "TikTok, Mike. The house or your son? Your choice." I called the police, but they said since Sarah was Tommy's legal mother and there was no custody agreement in place, they couldn't do anything immediately. They noted the report but told me it was a civil matter. Those words were beginning to haunt me. 1 hour left, came another text. "James has a cabin up north. Tommy might enjoy an extended vacation there. Unless—" I slumped against the wall, my mind racing. Everything I'd done to protect our home suddenly felt meaningless. The house was just walls and a roof. Tommy was my life. But something wasn't adding up. Sarah was many things, but she'd never been careless. Why would she leave such an obvious trail of threats by text? That's when it hit me. I ran to Tommy's room and booted up his iPad, the one that shared location data with his phone for emergencies. Sarah had forgotten to turn it off. They weren't at any cabin up north. The blue dot on the map showed they were at her mother's condo, just 20 minutes away. Sarah had never been good at technology. That had always been my department. I broke every speed limit getting to her mother's condo. When I pulled up, I saw Sarah's car and an unfamiliar black SUV. Had to be James's. My hands were trembling as I pressed the buzzer. Sarah's mother, Eleanor, answered with her usual cold voice. "Yes? I'm here for my son, Eleanor." Minutes later, I was standing in their living room. Sarah and James were on the couch, Tommy sitting quietly in an armchair, clutching his backpack. James had his arm around Sarah, trying to look intimidating but just coming across as sleazy in his expensive polo shirt. "Here's how this works," Sarah started, her voice sickly sweet. "You sign the house back over to both of us, and we'll work out a custody arrangement that's beneficial for everyone." "You mean beneficial for you?" I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Be reasonable, man," James chimed in. "Sarah and I have plans for that property. You can't just—" "Dad," Tommy's voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned to look at him. His little face was red, and I could see tears in his eyes. "I don't want to stay with Mom anymore." Sarah jumped up. "Tommy, sweetie, you don't mean that. Remember what we talked about? About our new family." "No." Tommy stood up, his voice stronger now. "You're mean to Dad. You make him work all the time, and then you say bad things about him. You told James that Dad was stupid for working so much. But Dad works because you keep buying expensive stuff." The room went dead silent. Tommy turned to me, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, I heard them talking lots of times. Mom says you're boring and that James is more fun. But you're never boring. You're just tired from helping sick people. And I don't want to live with James." He called me the kid when he thought I couldn't hear him. Sarah's face had gone white. "Tommy, you don't understand adult things. I understand that you're not nice anymore, Mom. You used to be nice, but now you're always angry or lying. I don't like it here. I want to go home with Dad." The room fell into a heavy silence after Tommy's words. I watched as James's confident demeanor crumbled. He stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair, his face pale. "Sarah," he said, his voice shaking. This isn't what I signed up for." He started pacing, looking between Sarah and Tommy. "Manipulating property rights is one thing, but kidnapping? Using a kid as leverage? This is criminal territory." Sarah spun around to face him. "James, what are you talking about? We had a plan." "A plan?" He laughed nervously. "The plan was to get an easy payday from your divorce settlement. Not this." He grabbed his car keys from the coffee table. "I'm not going to jail for this. I've got a career to think about." "James, wait." Sarah grabbed his arm. "You promised we'd do this together. You said." He yanked his arm away. "Wake up, Sarah. I played you, okay? You were an easy mark, bitter about your boring life, desperate for excitement, throwing money around like it was nothing. I figured I'd ride it out, help you squeeze some cash from your divorce, and move on. But this," he gestured at Tommy, "this is insane. You're insane." Sarah stumbled backward like she'd been slapped. You were just using me?" "Obviously." James headed for the door, then turned back one last time. "And for the record, your spending habits are ridiculous. No wonder your husband had to work double shifts." With that, he walked out, the door slamming behind him. Through the condo's window, I watched him practically run to his SUV. Within seconds, he was peeling out of the parking lot, leaving tire marks on the pavement. Sarah stood frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her. Tommy walked over and took my hand, squeezing it tight. "Can we go home now, Dad?" The silence after James's departure was deafening. Sarah stood there, mascara running down her face, when Eleanor finally spoke up from where she'd been quietly watching everything unfold. "I have never been so ashamed in my entire life." Eleanor's voice was quiet but cutting. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking. "I raised you better than this, Sarah. Your father and I taught you about dignity, about family values. And look what you've become." Sarah turned to her mother, reaching out. "Mom, please." "No." Eleanor stepped back. "You try to destroy a good man. Mike has worked himself to exhaustion for years to give you the lifestyle you demanded. He's been a wonderful father to Tommy. And how do you repay him? By plotting with some con man to steal his house. By using my grandson as a pawn." I wasn't thinking." Sarah stammered. Clearly, Eleanor's face was stone. "Pack whatever things you have here and get out. I don't want you in my home anymore." Sarah's eyes widened. "What? Mom, where am I supposed to go? That's not my concern anymore. You're not the daughter I raised." Eleanor turned to me and Tommy. "Mike, please take my grandson home. And know that I'm on your side if you need me to testify about what happened here today." Tommy hugged his grandmother tight. "Love you, Grandma." "I love you too, sweetheart." Eleanor hugged him back, tears in her eyes. "Now go home with your father where you belong." As Tommy and I walked to the door, Sarah called out desperately, "Tommy, please. Mommy loves you." Tommy looked back at her, his small face serious. "I love you too, Mom. But I want to live with Dad." We left Sarah standing in her mother's living room, sobbing. As we drove home, Tommy was quiet for a while before asking, "Dad, is it okay to still love Mom but not want to be around her?" I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "That's more than okay, buddy. That's very grown-up thinking." 2 weeks after that day at Eleanor's, I received the call that changed everything again. It was from Sarah's friend Rachel, her voice breaking as she delivered the news. Sarah had been found in her hotel room. She'd left a note apologizing to Tommy. The aftermath of our confrontation had spread quickly through our social circle. Sarah's carefully crafted image had shattered completely. Her real estate firm had let her go after learning about the attempted property scheme. Her friends, one by one, had stopped taking her calls once they learned the full story. Even James had apparently blocked her number. I sat in the kitchen for hours that night after putting Tommy to bed, trying to process everything. Despite all that had happened, despite her betrayal and manipulation, I never wanted this. 15 years of marriage don't just disappear, and somewhere beneath the person she'd become was the woman I'd once loved, the mother of my child. Eleanor called the next morning. For the first time in my life, I heard her cry. "I keep thinking about the last words I said to her," she whispered. I was so angry. The hardest part was telling Tommy. How do you explain something like this to an 8-year-old? I consulted a child psychologist first, wanting to handle it as carefully as possible. When I finally told him, he just sat quietly for a long time before asking, "Was it because of what I said at Grandma's?" "No, buddy," I held him close as he cried. "It wasn't because of anything you said or did. Mom was very sick in her heart and mind, and she couldn't find her way back. Sometimes I look back and wonder if I could have handled things differently. If I'd seen the signs of her unhappiness earlier, or if I'd worked fewer hours, or if I'd confronted her about James sooner. The psychologist tells me this kind of thinking isn't healthy, that Sarah's choices were her own, but it's hard not to wonder." 6 months have passed since Sarah's death. Tommy and I are in therapy, both individually and together. The house that was once the center of all this conflict has become our sanctuary, a place where we're slowly learning to heal. Eleanor comes over every Sunday for dinner now. She's been an unexpected source of strength, helping Tommy maintain positive memories of his mother while acknowledging the complexity of what happened. We've created a memory box where Tommy keeps photos of happier times with Sarah, along with little things that remind him of her. The seashell necklace she bought him at the beach last summer, the birthday cards she wrote him over the years. I've reduced my hours at the hospital, making sure I'm home more for Tommy. My colleagues have been incredibly supportive, especially after everything that happened. It's strange how tragedy can bring out both the worst and best in the community around you. Last week, Tommy asked if we could visit Sarah's grave. We brought flowers, and he placed a drawing he'd made next to them. As we stood there, he said something that broke my heart and gave me hope at the same time. "Dad, I'm sad that Mom is gone, but I'm happy that you're okay. I was really scared she was going to take you away from me. The truth is, I'm still processing everything. Some days I'm angry at Sarah for what she did to our family, for leaving Tommy to grow up without his mother. Other days I remember the good times and mourn the woman she used to be." The therapist says these conflicting feelings are normal, that healing isn't linear. James disappeared completely after that day, probably moved on to his next scheme. I heard through mutual friends that he's been trying the same manipulation with other women in different cities. Part of me wants to warn them, but I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is focus on your own healing. For those wondering how this story ends, it doesn't, not really. We're still writing it day by day. Tommy and I are closer than ever, but we carry scars that may never fully heal. What I've learned is that sometimes the happy ending isn't about everything being perfect. It's about finding peace with what is and being grateful for the love that remains. To anyone going through something similar, get help. Talk to someone. Don't let pride or shame keep you from reaching out. Life is too precious to waste on bitterness and revenge, and too short to spend it unloved.